from the Health Professions Advising Office come and talk about intent to apply. So if you're in the process of applying next cycle, I strongly encourage you to come and check out this meeting. I think it's very useful if you need some guidance with the whole application process. And then the week after that, we have Rosenberg School of Optometry coming, and that's going to be November 8th, and that's going to be in Gilman AB, so this room here. And same time. And upcoming events. So again, we have the Central West County Health Expo this weekend actually, and that's going to be Saturday and Sunday. So if you are going, I'll be there Saturday. And yeah, if you guys can make it, strongly encouraged. It'll be a great experience to help the underprivileged community. And then we have Western U Preview Day. That's going to be Saturday, November 18th, and that's going to be in Western in Pomona. And that's from 8:30 to 2 p.m. Socials. So, like, if you guys got these email, we do have a pre-vet collaboration, and we're going to go ice skating this Friday, and that's going to be in the Anaheim ice rinks, and that's from 7 to 9. So I hope you guys are able to make that. And then we have SCCO Club Day. That's going to be Saturday, November 11th, and that's going to be from 9 to 12:30 p.m. So it's a great way to talk to admission staff, optometry students, and just get to know the program if you guys are interested. And a new event, we have Friendsgiving 2017, and that's going to be Friday, November 17th. So that's the Friday that we're off to break. And we're going to have that, Solange is going to host the event for us this year, and that's going to be at 6 p.m. So just keep a lookout for the email that I send. I'm going to put more information, and it's going to be a potluck, so you get to bring your own food if you want, and it should be fun. It'll be a great way to start your Thanksgiving break. And fundraising, so we're having our first fundraiser of the year, so I'll let Dee talk a little bit more about it since she's the one that coordinated it.
Okay, so this year we're going to do Popcornopolis. They have a lot of flavors, and each of their cones do cost differently. Hector, can you go ahead and hold it and then open it? So the inside shows all the flavors, the pricing, and stuff like that. You are rewarded 1 hour if you do sell 5 cones, or if you sell 1 basket, which does have 5 cones, and you do get that hour. And then you close it, and it shows it back. And then you can keep track of your orders on that, but I will be sending out an Excel sheet. It's like a master list, and you'll just put in your orders there. And then the money is going to be due November 17th, either at the Health Professions Office by 4:30. They do close at 5, but I want to make sure I get there on time to pick it up before they close. And then, or if you're not going to turn it in by then the Thanksgiving or Friendsgiving dinner, you can turn it in there too.
Yes, so thank you for that. So if you guys have any questions, Bea will be glad to help you out with that. And that's it for any updates this week. So this week we're fortunate enough to have Nico come and speak to us about the program and get a little more insight. So let's go ahead and give her a round of applause.
Thank you. Thank you guys for having me. It seems kind of funny to talk about ice skating in this weather. Granted, I'm guessing it's indoors, but still. Am I good if I stand here? It's being recorded, right?
Oh yeah, fine, yeah.
Yeah, you're okay then.
Okay. I'm a little nervous. Hi everyone, my name is Kristen Tobin. I'm the Director of Admissions at the New England College of Optometry in Boston. Really happy to be here. Thank you guys so much for having me. I believe, or I know, I guess I should say, my colleague Paul Mills was here last year, so some of you may have met him. I was just telling some of these guys that we got to debate over who went where, and I sent him up to Alberta, and I got to come to Southern California and see all of you. So we love our Alberta students too. It's a little colder up there this time of year, so happy to be here. Before I get going, it would be great if you guys could just introduce yourself and just let me know what year you are, just because I have a sense of who's in the room. And you can start with Solange.
So I'm Solange, and I'm a senior.
Awesome.
I'm Sarah, and I'm also a senior.
Lisa, senior.
I'm Kyle and I'm a junior.
Joel, I'm a senior.
Me? Oh. I'm Katrina, I'm a 5th year.
Okay.
Teresa, I'm a 4th year.
Hector, I'm a senior.
I'm Alex. I'm a super senior.
Super senior, I like that.
V, I'm a senior.
Awesome, lots of seniors. Are any of you in the midst of applying right now? Yeah, awesome. So you're right in the mix of it. I do have a PowerPoint, obviously, but I like to be as informal as makes sense. So please feel free to ask questions at any point. If you do have questions about the application process as well, I know you guys, it sounds like you have lots of good information coming your way and advising, but I'm always happy to talk about that too. I've worked in college admissions for, I think it's 14 years now, makes me feel old. So my background is admissions, not optometry, but one of my favorite parts is just kind of working with students through the process. So with that said, is it the arrows or is it?
Yes, the arrows.
There we go. So NECO was founded in 1894. As our President Scott likes to say, we've been doing this for a very long time. But that said, one of the things that we always tell students that's really important to us is, although we have been around for a very long time, our kind of part of our mission is to be on the cutting edge of what's going on in optometry, given how quickly healthcare, technology, the industry is changing. It's important to us that, yes, we've been doing this for a long time, but let's not kind of just rest back. Let's make sure we're always, being really proactive in how we approach training our students. On average, our class size is about 130 students every year. We're one of, I guess you'd say, the larger optometry programs, not the largest, but larger. Our labs are much smaller than that, so more like 20 students per class with a few different faculty members working with you, so you get a lot more of that one-on-one attention. We have a fairly diverse group, currently over 28 different states represented. California is usually the, we battle second, third, fourth largest. It's probably about 10 or 15% of our population all throughout the state. It's probably only about 10 or 15% of our students are actually from Massachusetts. Most people do travel from elsewhere. About a quarter plus of our students are from Canada, so we have the largest international population of any of the optometry schools. So in general, it's usually about 25% Canadian and maybe 1% a mix of a few other countries. But definitely feel really honored that people choose to come from all over and come and study with us in Boston. So that tells you a little bit more about our class. This is a picture of our front building when you walk in. There was something else I was going to mention on this that I forgot, but I'm sure it'll come back to me hopefully in a second. Anyone been to Boston before? Yes. Yay. So this is actually, these three buildings here are our campus. What you see behind there is the Charles River. The other side of the river is Cambridge, which is where like Harvard and MIT, you might have heard of some of those schools before, are located. We're in an area of Boston called the Back Bay. It's a really historic, really beautiful part of the city. We're very lucky to be there. These buildings are called brownstones. They're buildings that have been around for hundreds of years, but the school came in and renovated them over the past about 50 years. It took 3 buildings and combined them into one. So it's a great place to study. I think Boston's definitely, I should say, I know Boston's one of the reasons a lot of students are interested in NECO. It's a big university town, but also we're really fortunate to really have some of the best medicine in the country and the world. We have some really excellent hospitals, medical schools, so that's something that we definitely take advantage of at NECO as we're creating our clinical program too. So I think that's something that our students really are excited about. Getting around, I was just going to say we don't have residence halls, but you are all used to having to get here. So I know it's a little bit of a different kind of commute maybe, but our students do all live in apartments. Given most of our students are not from the Boston area, we do work closely, or as closely as students would like us to help with the kind of process of finding housing in Boston, getting oriented. We do a housing fair that we invite accepted students to, things like that, to kind of help you get transition there. Most people in Boston do not own a car. Working in admissions for a long time, that kind of, for so many students, is shocking because they can't picture kind of life without their car. I can tell you that I went to my undergrad and grad in downtown Boston, and then didn't own a car myself till I was in my 30s. So it's pretty easy to get around, and especially where the campus is located. It's a pretty walkable city in general. A lot of our students live within 5 or 10 minute walk of campus. If people choose to live a little further out in one of the other neighborhoods, which can be a good way to save a little money too, we have the T as our subway and bus line. So other than when we get buried with snow, which knock on wood, this won't be a crazy winter, everything runs really well, and it's easy to get around the city. When it snows a lot, we usually close anyway, so you probably don't get a lot of snow days here, I'm guessing. Our campus, so this is a shot of the inside of our main building. People say, they often say it reminds them of Harry Potter. Not a Harry Potter person, but it really is a beautiful historic building. The top of this rotunda has a beautiful kind of stained glass dome. So it's a really nice place to study. We redid our cafe and library area last year. This is a shot in our current pre-clinic at the top. One thing that we're really excited about is we're in the process of building a brand new pre-clinic, which will open by this summer. So this incoming class will be the first ones to have access to that. Probably if I had to pick an area that we're maybe lacking, our training is there and you have the basic equipment, but given this building, that it is an historic building, it's been hard, we can't really expand. So we felt like we needed more space, and we definitely felt like we needed the availability of having to be able to rotate in new technology. So we're actually co-locating our new pre-clinic with one of our owned and operated clinics, which is right down the street, and I'll talk more about that. But it just gives us the opportunity to do a lot more with the space. I feel like our president and our dean, they were like little kids running around. They've been checking out everybody's pre-clinics across the country and kind of picking what do they think is the coolest things to have in there, and how can we make it flexible so that when technology changes in 6 months, we can rotate new technology in. So that's something that we're definitely really excited about at campus. The other thing I like to mention, and especially in talking to first year students and asking, 23 schools, they're all great, why'd you choose NECO? One of the common themes I hear over and over again is kind of a sense of community. Although we have a class size of 130, since we're a standalone school, all we do is optometry, there's only about 500 students total, so it's small. And people definitely look out for each other, they support each other. Our goal is that you all start together, you all graduate together. So obviously you're going to be challenged. It's a doctoral program. We bring you in knowing it's going to be, the curriculum and everything is really rigorous, but we want to make sure that you're supported throughout. And our students are like that too. They really do look out for each other, and it's not a competitive environment, which is really nice. Student services and organizations, again, obviously we know you're going to be busy, but we do want students to have the opportunity to get involved in different ways outside the classroom as they do choose. We currently have over 15 different student organizations. They range from student government, a lot of different service organizations, some professional groups. This image at the top is one of our Bosch trips, Bosch International. They do service trips abroad every year. They've been going to the Dominican Republic for the last few years, but it does vary. And we have other groups of students. We have a group of students that went to Tanzania over the summer. We have students that do service locally in the Boston area as well. So in general, kind of giving back to the community, just hearing about the fair that you guys are attending, how we can support, especially underserved populations, it's kind of in our DNA as an institution. It's always been a focus. So you see that in our student groups, and you see it with our faculty, and even our president has a public health background. So students have the opportunity to even get involved in policy work and things like that if they're interested too. Sometimes they have fun and they smile. This is from the NECO Olympics, which is an annual event. This is some of our first year students. We just started, and we're kind enough to share some photos with me. We have the eyeball, the annual dance every year. There's an amazing race, Boston, that they do. So definitely lots of cool things going on throughout the year. On like the student services side, we have tutoring available in all subjects. We're also doing some group tutoring sessions that our residents are running this year. Our students had asked for more kind of group support, so we're running those on, I think, a bi-weekly basis in all of the first year courses right now. We pair you with a faculty and a student mentor coming in your first year. Career services, obviously important. We do a lot with our alumni office. A lot of our career services are run jointly with them. So bringing alumni and other practitioners onto campus, whether or not they're NECO alums or not, but definitely bringing a lot of our alums in to talk about different areas, you know, how to open a private practice, working in academia, working in more of a medical center, in these different areas. Obviously, there's so many different things you can do with optometry, and also connecting our students with alumni all over the country. Given that many of our students are not from Massachusetts, and most of our alumni, a lot of them go home, so I know definitely on the West Coast, a lot of NECO alumni, so it's big for us that we get you kind of integrated into that network right away. Board exams, you may or may not know, you usually you take part 1 in your 3rd year of optometry school, and then part 2 and part 3 in your 4th year. Part 1's in March, and it's like our 3rd year students have midterms and they have boards the next week, and it's like, it's an interesting scene, but we are there to support you with that. And right from first year, we build things into the curriculum, obviously that giving you the information you're going to need for boards, but we also do things like use the test software for some of our tests that you use when you take the board exam, set up some of our questions in each class's midterms and finals in the same, they're set up in the same way that the national boards set up their questions. You guys probably know with standardized testing, a big part of it is knowing how to do the timing, the software, how to answer the questions. I know a bunch of the questions, there's like more than one right answer, and seriously, do they have to make it that hard for everyone? But those are things we try to support you with from the beginning so that you're going to feel really prepared when you get to that point. Our curriculum, I know you guys have different schools coming in. In general, you know, I definitely spend time looking at the other programs, and our curriculums are all fairly similar, partially because we have to prepare you for the boards. With that said, I think everybody has a little bit of a different approach. I know with us at NECO, one thing that's really important is that you start getting patient experience right away. So, for example, students come in your first couple weeks, your first year, one of your classes is Principles and Practices of Optometry. It's a lecture class with a big lab component. That's where you spend a lot of your time in pre-clinic. So one of the first things you talk about in class is what's a pediatric eye screening, what are we looking for, why is it important. In your labs, you talk about, okay, what are the initial techniques you're going to need to do this. Obviously, we're not going to send you out alone. We send you out with one of our doctors. But by week 2 or 3, we're going to send you into Boston Public Schools, get you in front of some 4-year-olds, which that makes it extra interesting, and have you start performing these pediatric screenings. Trying to, you know, screen for different things like lazy eye and things that are very prevalent, but also much more easily treatable if they're picked up at a young age. You're going to come back, you're going to talk about what you saw, and you're going to continue to kind of learn new skills, and you're going to do more of these, usually 8 to 10 throughout your first year. In addition to that, you're going to spend a lot of time, obviously, in your lab courses practicing on each other. It's not until 2nd year that students start dilating each other, and our work studies come in with their eyes looking all funky, but you definitely do spend a lot of time practicing as well. But we think it's important that you see patients right away. Another thing that we think is important, especially given that we focus on solely optometry and eye care, is that we give students options for flexibility. So things like we have concentration programs in pediatrics and contact lens, working on creating one in low vision. You have an elective you can take in your 3rd year that you can focus in these areas, but also in vision therapy and low vision. 2 of our rotations, one is an elective rotation and one's a specialty rotation. So again, another opportunity to get specific area focus, specialty focus if you're looking to do that. A lot of our students don't know they necessarily want this coming in. Some do, but a lot of them kind of discover it along the way. So we try to create different avenues for students to personalize their experience. And then this past year, I think it was either 40 or 41 of our graduating class students chose to do residencies, which is really high. Obviously not required, but they were just really passionate about getting additional exposure, whether it be in primary care or in a specialty area. So we work really closely and have really high placement rates with our residencies. Students staying at NECO, but also going and doing residencies in other parts of the country. So always want to try to support people. This is actually our campus. We do, our 3rd year students all take a PEDS class, and they invite faculty and staff to bring their kids in and do and sit for screenings. I have a 2-year-old. I brought her in the last 2 years. So it's fun. We're always kind of you know, integrating our community. I've also sat for proficiencies before, which is always interesting. People are a little nervous, so so definitely as a community we get people involved too on campus. Clinical education, I would say in addition to Boston and the sense of community at NECO, this is the other big thing that I hear when students decide to attend NECO. The fact that we do get you started with patients right away, and then also that, as I'll explain in a minute, we have a kind of expansive network of sites that you do your clinical work in. So we start you early, but it's also really important to us that you get a diverse experience. Obviously, we live in a diverse world, so it's important. We think that our students see different kinds of patients from different backgrounds throughout their time at NECO. And that we have faculty that are working really closely with you every step of the way. Our faculty are pretty awesome. They're a mix. So we've got the longtime NECO people, then we have people that have studied at programs across the country and in other parts of the world and have come to Boston and teach. So I think it's definitely a good mix. The other neat thing about them is I feel like they all wear like 55 different hats. Like they're practicing in clinic, they're doing research, they're doing both, they're teaching, they're traveling. So they're a neat group of people. We do have 2 owned and operated NECO eye care centers, NECO Center for Eye Care. Our flagship clinic is our Commonwealth Clinic, which is right down the street from where we're located in Boston. It's right across from Boston University. That's where these photos are. We actually just completely renovated the clinic. It was on the 2nd floor of the building. We moved it to 1st floor. Retail-wise, we have storefront, street front space, which any of you who work in retail will know that could be very important. But the nice thing with that too is everything is brand new. And we're able to do some cool things in there. We have some mini lanes that have technology that move in and out of them. We have a kind of really neat, innovative pre-test area, which is where this photo is here. Some of our 3rd-year students, practicing on that. Really nice optical slot. So definitely part of the time that students rotate through, they will be doing that at our NECO Center for Eye Care. You can see the different services provided there. And as I mentioned earlier, we're also going to be co-locating our pre-clinic here. And one thing I really like about that too is obviously you're still going to be in classes, practicing on students, working with your faculty, but we're really hoping to integrate real-time patient situations in too. All of the different bays are going to have video that's shared throughout, and our faculty will be able to practice in clinic and then be coming in to teach. So I think it's going to be really more of a dynamic environment. And we also have some clinical research taking place here, so we think it's going to be definitely a good and interesting experience for our students, but also for our faculty too. So pretty excited about that. As I mentioned before, one of the things that makes our program a little bit different, a lot of schools, and not a good or bad thing, just different, have 1 or 2 owned clinics. It's usually on their university campus, and as a student in your 2nd or 3rd year, you do most of your clinical work there. And in general, you're going to see mostly faculty, fellow students, so kind of a set group. At NECO, we do have our owned and operated clinic, but in addition to that, we have our network in Boston of over 40 sites. And what that means is our faculty are teaching or working at those sites. So some of them are private practices, community health centers, which I'll talk about in a second, VA hospitals, school-based programs, hospital-based programs, places like Children's Hospital, Mass Pioneer. So we take advantage of that network and how we kind of set up our students. So you almost start doing mini rotations in your 2nd and 3rd year. Your 2nd year, you'd be at either 1 or 2 sites. And then your 3rd year, you get the opportunity to be at 3 different locations. It scares students sometimes when I talk about this. I promise it's very purposefully built, and we make sure we support you in getting to each place. It's not like we're sending you 40 different places in 1 year. But what it does is it gives you the opportunity, even before you hit your rotations in 4th year, to experience all different settings. A lot of the time in your 2nd and 3rd year, it's also within our community health center system in Boston. The community health centers were started in the 1960s, and their kind of main reason they originally came about was for primary care for mostly immigrant populations that had moved to Boston and didn't have access to health care. The populations in Boston have shifted, but the health centers remain very centric to each neighborhood. So depending on what part of the city you're in, it could be a couple blocks away, you're going to see very different populations. For instance, our South Boston Center was primarily an Irish American population. It's now, I think, 90% Albanian. So there's a very good chance in your 2nd or 3rd year you're going to be working with patients that are from a culture that's very different from your own. We work really closely with you. Like I said, our faculty are there working alongside you. Second year, we kind of ease you into it. You do pieces of the eye exam with the hope that before you step into your first day, third year, you're getting full eye exams. Third year is more of a direct kind of patient care experience. I don't think I have this on the next slide, but I'm gonna check. Oh shoot. Go back. And then fourth year, similar to the other programs, it's all clinical. And I do like to mention, especially given we are on the opposite coast of the U.S., that we have rotations throughout the United States, including Hawaii and Alaska. I keep waiting for someone to ask me to go visit one of them. The Alaska one, actually, our students go out in bush planes and fly out to rural parts of the state to perform screenings and eye exams, which just kind of blows my mind. But so especially if students wanted maybe try somewhere else different, or I think more importantly, want to do a rotation closer to home to kind of reestablish their network, that's definitely something we can work with students around. We also have a rotation in China, we have one in the UK, so some really cool opportunities there. Any questions? Sorry, I know I'm throwing a lot of information at you. Although we're not affiliated with a larger university, we definitely have some cool research going on. We get funding from National Eye Institute, and as well as other kind of groups, government and nonprofit groups throughout the country. We've been known especially for research in myopia. You might have noticed we have a myopia control clinic on campus as part of our clinic. We also do have a combined MS-OD program, so students apply into it their first year and they graduate still in 4 years, no additional cost, but with a master's in vision science in addition to the OT. It's small. I would say it's probably anywhere from 5 to 8 students per year will enter the program, and usually it's because they know they want more research experience or possibly or they'd like to teach. But it's cool in that you get paired with a faculty mentor starting your first year, and you get to choose, you have the opportunity to learn about what our faculty are working on research-wise, and then pick kind of an order, of what you're interested in and get paired accordingly. The students here, Maria and Stephanie, they're actually second-year students. They just kind of officially entered into the program over this past summer, and they're working with one of our faculty members, Dr. Pudorgis, who does research. It's kind of around contact lens, but also color vision. I would tell you more, but it's beyond my English major brain. But this is something they were able to kind of dive into, start taking a resource seminar their second semester of their first year, and then they did a lot of work over the summer, and now they're doing continued things throughout, and then they will do a thesis by the time they graduate as well. We also have a combined PhD OD program with BU. It's pretty rare. I would say maybe one student a year decides to apply into it because it ends up being, it's 3 years at NECO, 2 years at BU, then another year back. So it is a great opportunity for someone who's really looking for that intensive research piece, but it's not every year that there's someone who's like, okay, that's what I want to do, but it's a cool opportunity to at least mention. Moving on to the application process, since it's rare, I'm sitting with mostly seniors, you guys could do this for me, but I'll just go over it quickly. Although there's only 23 of our schools, we all kind of mix up the way we do the application process, which is not very nice of us, but these are our prerequisites. The first probably 4 lines I would say are pretty standard, the 2 bio, chem, physics, and we require 1 orgo. I know some schools require orgo too. Microbiology and biochemistry, I know not everyone requires, we do. Calculus, stats, psych. English does not have to be 2 English department classes. It can be anything writing intensive, which we usually define as 50% or more of your grade was writing. Students will send syllabus our way. I don't think I've ever denied a student's class that they've tried to use for this. So I don't know if you have to take English courses. I know a lot of students are with their prereqs and everything else don't always take 2 writing classes in the English department. So I always mention that. You don't have to have finished your prereqs before you apply. With NECO, you just have to finish them before the first day of classes. So there's always that group of like 10 or 15 students that make me nervous. They're taking biochemistry in July before they start in September. But as long as you get to C or better and it's done and we have your transcript, then you are good to go with that. The rest of the application process, I know some of you are already probably all up in OptumCast. It went live actually on June 28th this year, but usually July 1st. We're rolling admissions through March 15th is our deadline. You probably know or may not know that all of the programs in the U.S. except for our friends up in Berkeley are rolling admissions. Most schools have deadlines between probably February and April, so we're kind of right in the middle there. We started reviewing files in July. We started interviewing the second week of September. We do require the OET. Shadowing, we don't have a set amount of hours, but I always say on a minimum I would shoot for 20. Normally when I'm working with students that are in pre-optometry clubs like your own, this is not a problem because you guys are doing things with the community and you're volunteering and all of that. But we don't have a set amount given some students I work with, depending on where they live. It's not always easy to even get the 20 hours because they're in rural Maine and there's one optometrist and it's 40 miles away. So there's some flexibility there. Shadowing, the big thing is obviously for all of you to make sure this is what you want to do, which I don't think you'd be sitting here if you weren't sure. But then also we do require a letter of recommendation from an OD. So hopefully the more time they spend with you, the more they can say really great things about you. We do have 2 letters of recommendation we require from faculty, or I should say we technically require. I need at least 1, but if you're having an issue getting a second, just let me know. Especially with larger schools, I know it can be tricky. So sometimes students will swap in another OD rec, or if you've done research under someone, that would definitely count too. So if you can get them, great. Sorry, go ahead.
Okay, is there a minimum for the OAT?
No, that's a good question. Actually, I'll flash to the stats in 1 second. If no, that's a great question. Actually, I'll do that right now.
I actually had another question about
Sure.
the letters of rec.
Yeah.
Can the second one from faculty, can it be an advisor?
Yes.
Because we have a pre-health advisor.
Yes, if it's pre-health advisor,
Okay.
yes. We prefer it to come from a student, someone that has taught you, but if it's a pre-health advisor that's worked
Could it be
closely
like a
with you-
faculty advisor and then the OD?
So, sorry, 3.
Like, yeah, so it would
Like
be.
faculty member, OD, and then your pre-health advisor? Yeah, that would be fine. Yeah, that's a good question. For me, and this is something I kind of always push back on our faculty, is I think the better someone knows you, the more they're going to be able to speak to your potential. If you go to a small, tiny liberal arts college and you have 10 students in your class, your faculty might know you really well. For most students I work with, that's not the case, so I try to have some flexibility around it. The one thing I kind of always say as a disclaimer is if I get your file, I review it, your OETs, your grades, your recs, and there's still some kind of outstanding concern, I will follow back up with the student and ask if there's another supporting letter they can provide. It doesn't happen often, but it's never that we just say, oh, nope, sorry, not going to review this. It's something that we would then loop back and be like, hey, is there someone else you think that could also give us some information on your file? With the OAT and the GPA, so this is our class of 2021 information, but our numbers, at least with GPA and OET, have been really consistent for, I don't know, at least the last 5+ years. We do not have cutoffs or minimums. With that said, we look for hopefully around a 3.3 GPA. That's pretty consistent for both the CUME GPA and science. Sometimes science more of like a 3.2 to 3.3. But I see students that are a range grades-wise. I always say I would like to see 1 of 2 things. Consistently, students doing really well, or if a student struggled, that they've been able to turn it around and they're on an upward trend, especially in their last couple of years. People are human, things happen. I say that all the time, and I try to work with them. I'm on the admissions committee, but since I'm not faculty, I don't vote, which in a way is helpful because I see myself as just an advocate for all of you, which is why I always tell students if they have questions or they want advice to send me their transcripts, send me their OATs, because that way I can try to work with you. But people are human and things happen. We actually have a question as part of our supplemental section on the OptumCast application that says, are there any extenuating academic circumstances? And that's a great place, to explain, something happened second half of sophomore year and all of a sudden your grades dove down or you had to withdraw some courses. Just having that information and having some context is always helpful. With the OAT, we do not have a cutoff. With that said, it is very rare that we invite someone to interview with less than a 300 academic average. I would say only a couple of times a year. So we're looking ideally for close to a 320, 330 academic average. And 300 or above on each subsection. With that said, you could end up with a 360 average and get a 280 in physics, depending on how your other scores fall. So it's pretty common that we accept students that might have 1 or 2 subscores below 300. I just kind of use that as a guideline. You know, the OATs can definitely be the piece that kind of messes with some people, so I totally can appreciate the stress that goes into that. And I just want you to know that we definitely take everything into consideration, including grades. The struggle that we have is there is data that correlates that at a certain level, if students don't perform to a certain level on the OAT, they're going to struggle, especially in their first and second year. So the last thing we want to do is set someone up for failure too, which is why we do, you know, definitely factor the test scores in as we're looking at the file. Our acceptance rate usually varies between like 35 to 40%. It was 39% this year. Varies a little depending on how many applications we get and our class size. That bottom piece is small, but I would say it's one of the biggest components of the decision for most, if not all, students. Since we are private, our tuition is the same no matter where you're from. Our current tuition is $40,638. All in, it's usually over $60,000 a year, so I know it's a big price tag. I always say at interview day, it's an investment, not just of your money, but of your time, your future. Boston's a great city, NECO's a great program, but both come with a price tag, and I understand that. And I think we can provide you with a really quality experience, but I also very much know that this is something that students are really wrestling with as they're making their decision, especially the option of in-state tuition. We do have many of our students that get financial aid. Filling out the FAFSA would qualify you definitely for federal loans, potentially work study. We have some students that take advantage of programs such as the health profession loans. The word loans does not resonate fantastically with anyone, which I understand, but I always do tell students that our average default rate on loans is 0%, which means our students are able to pay them back usually within 10 years or less, which is a good thing, obviously. We do have some limited merit scholarships available as well. We work with students the best we can to find a way to make it as affordable as possible. But do know that that's definitely an important factor as people are considering where they will go to school. I think that is the end of my presentation. I'm happy to answer any questions anyone might have. Anyone already know where they're going this year? Like set, deposited? Where are you going?
Well, I still don't know where I'm going, but I have deposits and proposals.
That's what makes it so tricky. Yeah. It's always like this mystery of
It's hard when they only give you 2 weeks to decide.
It's possible. Yeah, I know. We do the same thing. Our deposit is actually fully refundable through March 31st, which is tricky for us because people put it down and we don't know for sure if they're going to come. But this process is so expensive. I don't want to hold on to someone's money. And then I think it's 75% refundable after that. I'm sure you're noticing as you're looking at different programs, so everybody's dates are a little bit different and how they do the refund process. So then you've got like Berkeley, who does one interview day and comes out at the end of January, and that, you know, obviously I don't know if any of you guys are looking at Berkeley, but you know that can be confusing sometimes for students as they're like interviewing in other places in September. So.
Do you have some insight into the interview process that NECO does?
Sure. Our interview process is pretty laid back, and that's the feedback I normally get from candidates. And when I snoop around Student Doctor Forum, which I confess I've done a couple times, our interview is one-on-one with a faculty member. I know every school does it differently. Since we are a small place, we try to set up our interview day. I always say we try to set it up to be more of a conversation, which is why we do a one-on-one interview. It is open file, so they have seen your whole application. But we find that that's helpful too. For a while, we didn't have people see the full file, and we'd have a student say, oh, I really struggled with my grades. And faculty member would say, oh, struggled with her grades. And then I would look and struggled meant she got like B+ sophomore year. So we find that it's helpful for that conversation, for kind of all the information to be out there. We don't bring people to campus unless we feel fairly confident that they're going to be accepted, especially given we ask so many people to travel far to get there. So for us, it's really about fit at that point, which I know is kind of an ambiguous term, but it's having that conversation. Do we see this as someone who could potentially be a good fit for our culture? Faculty will kind of be approaching it like, is this someone we can see practicing in clinic with, see having in lab? I know I mentioned our overall acceptance rates in the 30, 35, 40%. Our acceptance rate after interview is closer to 85%. So really at that point is kind of a dialogue. And also sometimes, you know, if there are things in a student's record that we're a little more concerned about, we might bring them to campus to talk about that. Doesn't mean that after that conversation, for sure, that we'll be able to, you know, make it work, but at least gives us the opportunity to learn a little bit more about what happened. The rest of our interview day, we do have students do kind of like, it's not a full interview, but an informal kind of meet and greet with one of our students, and they do provide some kind of like quick feedback, but the rest of the day is mostly spent touring, seeing the clinic, things like that.
I have another question about
Awesome.
I guess I could compare it with the MS-OD.
Yeah.
And the PhD-OD
Mhm.
route. Is that something that students apply to, like, as soon as they, like, once they get accepted? Or is it like at the tail end of the first year?
It's a great question. We used to give students the option to apply to it before they got to NECO, and we felt like that was made it trickier. So it's now, the applications for both programs are due, this year it's December 15th. It's always sometime in December. And one of the things we have students, or that's optional, is we offer, it's called the research seminar the first year, and it meets, I think it's usually once a week, and they basically have all the different researchers come through and present what they're working on and talk a little bit more about the program. So students can opt to take that. And usually anywhere from like 20 to 30 students a year will attend that, and then out of that, you know, a smaller group will apply. Although it's like 6 to 8 students in the program, it's not that we're turning like 20 students away. Every year there might be a couple students that don't get in, but normally it's because they're not doing well academically. That's the other reason we changed it to be a process that you apply once you're at NECO, because we want to make sure, I think they're looking for students to be at either a 3.0 or 3.2, I can't remember off the top of my head. But since it is additional coursework, we don't want to pile it on top. Students though also, and actually we had 2 students choose to take a different route this year. There's a grant program that we have that all students who get accepted to this research program do. It's the first 6 weeks of the summer after you finish your first year. But we have students who can apply to do this grant program and get intensive research experience, whether or not they're in the dual degree program or not. And then at the end of that, if they decide they want to apply into it, they can at that point. So we actually accepted 2 more students into the program at the end of this past summer. So there are a couple different kind of entry points. Then we also have students that end up involved in research, but not in as much of a formalized way. They, you know, kind of develop a relationship with one of our faculty and kind of take it from there, so.
What's the difference between the MS-OD program and the OD-PhD?
So one leads to a master's degree and one leads to a PhD doctorate degree. The master's program is done solely at NECO, so it's all of your coursework and your research is done in conjunction with the regular kind of core curriculum, and both degrees come from NECO at the end. The PhD program, since we don't offer, we're not accredited to offer a PhD degree at the institution. It's a joint agreement we have with Boston University. It's a partnership we've had for a long time. So students would do their first 3 years of coursework at NECO, then they go and take 2 years of coursework towards their PhD at BU, and there's some different areas of focus students can kind of go within that PhD, within their study there through, depending on given what BU offers. And then students would come back and do their last year of clinical work at NECO. So at the end you end up with a doctorate or a doctorate of optometry from NECO and a doctor of, I don't know if it's vision science, I'm not sure on that. I'm not sure what the PhD is, and I apologize, but you'd have a degree from Boston University and from NECO. Students who look, you don't see many people who go the PhD route in optometry. I work with a lot of faculty that are PhDs, but they are solely research. So some of them actually don't have their ODs, so they've always done something to do with, you know, neuro, eye, something in the span of eye research, but they don't also have an OD because they don't practice. So to find someone who's interested in being a clinician but also wants to go to that level of research, it's not that it's a bad thing, it just, at least in my experience, has been a little bit more rare. But it does, I think, it would probably open up more opportunities possibly for teaching in different areas and also possibly in different research that you'd qualify for. if it's something you want more information about, I can definitely, I usually eventually will direct students. I'll have them talk to Dr. Guazda, who oversees our research program, but then we'll also connect them with a doctor who oversees the program at BU to give them more information. So. Yeah, it's been coming up more and more. Like, I think I had 2 first-year students this past year who were applying into it. I think they both ended up doing the master's program. Because they found that based on what they wanted to do, that was going to be enough for them for now. But there's always, people are always there are definitely students every year that toy with the idea. And we have had students, we've had at least 2 students complete it in the last, or that were completing it in the last 3 years while I was at NECO. They were already further along in the program. So it does happen. But not everybody wants that much of an extensive experience.
So if you decide to do the PhD OD, do you graduate with a different class than you entered with?
You do.
Okay.
Yeah.
So is that a little confusing for the PhD students as far as coursework?
No, because it's a really set track. Like it's all laid out. There's like an articulation agreement that tells you exactly what you're going to take. Personally, the one thing I wonder, and this is just me, not someone who's gone through the program, is I would think it might be a little difficult to have done, first, second, third year, you're all ramped up doing your clinical third year, and then you're going to do more of a theory piece and then having to come back and do your rotations. People do it and they're successful at it, but I think it's just something that, especially people get really tight with their classes at NECO. So I think, that's part of, as I'm having students talk about which route they want to take, I think those are things they're definitely factoring in. I think it's a very specific student that a program like this makes sense for. But everything's laid out, so it's not that there's, like, you would know exactly what you're going to be doing each year. And it was set up, they actually shifted the program. It used to be 2 years and then BU and then 2 years back, and they shifted it and they're finding this to be a better system. So. You guys have asked me more questions about PhD than anyone ever has. I'm like, shoot, I gotta go learn more.
The residency programs, I think I saw it on the slide, are the only 2 options you have. Is it just for contact lens and pediatric, or does it go more different?
So on our concentrations, which are just kind of specialty areas, the 2 concentrations right now, we only have contact lens and pediatrics, so we're working on low vision, and that should be up and running, I'm hoping, in the next year. So with those students, again, applying to them their first semester at NECO, so those are usually students who come into optometry school knowing, I absolutely want to specialize in this area. For many other students, they decide later, so that's when we have our special population selective. Students will opt to do in their 3rd year, and that includes vision therapy, low vision. If there's a kind of subspecialty you're interested in, sometimes we can pair students with a clinical assignment in that area. And then also in your 4th year, you have your specialty rotation, which can be in any specialty area, and you also have an elective rotation, which if students have kind of sought out a special niche area for themselves, that's a good opportunity to get more exposure there. When it comes to actual residencies, so basically doing a 5th year, we have them in all different areas as well. Though a lot of our residencies are actually in VA, we have a strong Veterans Affairs connection, and they're either ocular health or primary care, but we have residencies in all of the different various areas as well. At that point too, a lot of students, I shouldn't say a lot, but some students will decide,